Have you ever tried to explain to someone how you feel and realized that words simply fail? That nothing you say can convey the intensity of what you are experiencing? It is frustrating, isn't it? It seems like there is an invisible wall between what we feel and what we can communicate. And the truth is that this wall is not just a failure of language, it is something deeper. There is an entire universe inside you, made of unique sensations, colors, flavors, and emotions that no one can touch, measure, or translate. Even the most advanced science admits some feelings have no translation. Imagine feeling something so intense that no word can capture it. Something that you know exists, but that no one can truly understand. It is in this space that qualia are born. These subjective experiences that make every human being unique and, at the same time, profoundly isolated. Today, you will discover why explaining what you feel is so difficult, and more importantly, how accepting this mystery can transform the way you connect with the world, with others, and with yourself. Prepare to see your feelings in a way you have never seen before. If topics like psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul interest you, subscribe to the channel now. From which part of the world are you watching this video right now? Leave your answer in the comments. For a better understanding of the subject, I will use a story, which will make it much easier. Mary was always a brilliant girl, one of those who carry a curious capable of piercing any invisible wall. But fate, in its silent irony, condemned her to live in a strange environment. Everything around her was black and white. There were books. There was the internet, even television. There were just no colors. Imagine growing up in an entire world without ever knowing the blue of the sky or the red of a rose. Revolted by this silent prison, Mary decided to make her mind her weapon. She spent years immersed in theories, formulas, articles, absorbing every bit of knowledge humanity had ever produced about colors. It was almost like a player mastering every manual of a game they could never play. She had never seen blue, but she knew the exact wavelengths that would make someone perceive it. Mary's obsession was so great that it became almost a metaphor for ourselves when we believe that knowing something is the same as living it. How many times have you read about love without feeling your heart race? Or about pain without having experienced loss? Mary believed that by accumulating knowledge, she could fill the void that the monochromatic world had imposed. Until one day, the door of the room opened. Without warning, without preparation, as if life itself had grown tired of the cruel experience. Mary stepped out. And there, before her eyes, the sky stretched in a vibrant blue, something that not all the pages of books could translate. It was as if her soul had received a new layer of reality, something that could only be understood through living. This scene almost seems like something from the movies. Imagine Neo in The Matrix, when he discovers that the world he knew was just an illusion. Or like Truman in The Truman Show, stepping through the door of his artificial bubble. The difference is that, in Mary's case, the prison was not made of bars or computers, but of an invisible limitation, the absence of direct experience. And here comes the uncomfortable question. Did Mary really learn something new when she saw blue for the first time? Or was theoretical knowledge already enough to know everything about that color? Philosophy challenges us exactly here, in the space between what we understand with the mind and what we feel with the heart. The paradox that Mary faces is not so distant from what you experience. After all, you can explain to someone what it feels like to be in love, but does the person really understand without feeling it? You can describe the pain of loss, but are words enough? What Mary experienced is a mirror of something every human being faces: the difference between knowing and experiencing. That is why this story, although simple, carries a disturbing depth. Mary had all the knowledge about blue, but only direct contact revealed what no theory could achieve. And perhaps it is precisely here that life teaches us something about the feelings that dwell within us. Something that opens the space for an even more delicate question. Mary, now facing Blue, noticed something curious. Trying to describe it seemed like an impossible task. Every word that left her mouth sounded poor, insufficient, as if she were trying to draw the taste of chocolate using only numbers. Have you ever tried to explain an intense sensation and felt that words simply could not do it justice? That is exactly what happens with our deepest experiences. She tried. It is a vivid color. It is calm and at the same time intense, she said. But the people around her only nodded, as if they understood, without really feeling it. And there was no blame in that. The human mind is limited when it needs to translate what is felt. It is like trying to capture a sunset in a pixelated photograph. You see the image, but the warmth, the smell, the breeze are missing. The paradox is cruel. The more you try to explain something you feel, the more you realize that words betray the experience. Mary realized that despite all the accumulated theoretical knowledge, she could never fully share the essence of Blue. And this is where many human relationships stumble, when deep feelings find no translation in the vocabulary we possess. And it is not just about colors. Think of complex emotions such as longing, ecstasy, or even fear. You can write entire pages, describe situations, but that sensation that tightens the chest, that accelerates the heart, always escapes definitions. It is as if each human being carries a secret library of sensations that no one else can fully access. Mary realized that trying to teach someone to see blue was useless, but trying to share the experience could create something equally powerful: empathy. Even if the person did not see blue as she did, they could feel closeness, an attempt to touch that experience. It is like when a musician conveys emotions without you understanding every note. You feel it, even without comprehension. At that moment, Mary understood that the true value of experiences is not in explaining them, but in living them. Words function as a bridge, but never as a substitute. It is a reminder that every human experience, no matter how simple it seems, carries nuances that challenge direct communication. And sometimes, that is what makes each moment so unique and precious. And here, a new dilemma arises. If words fail, how can we truly share what we feel? If even colors and emotions escape description, how can we trust that someone truly understands our pain, our joy, or our love? Mary began to realize that the limit of language was not just an intellectual frustration, but an essential characteristic of existence. This realization left Mary uneasy, but curious. Because if we cannot translate our experiences, perhaps there is another way to understand them, one that does not rely on words. Something more direct, more sensory, more connected to who we really are. And it was at this point that her story began to delve into something we all face: the mystery of feeling without being able to explain. Mary began to notice that her mind, however brilliant, functioned as an imperfect translator. Every emotion, every color, every sensation had to pass through complex filters before becoming words. It is as if we are always translating a foreign language we never fully learned, and often we lose the essence along the way. She remembered philosophy lessons when they spoke about the subjectivity of human experience. Nothing we feel is universal. What was intense and deep for Mary could be only a shadow in another person's perception. And here comes a question every human being has asked. Does anyone truly feel as we feel? Or do they just interpret our words based on their own inner universe? The mind tries to organize experiences, categorize them, name them, but it does not always succeed. Mary realized that by doing this, we risk reducing something complex to simplistic definitions. It is like trying to summarize an entire film in one sentence. You understand the story, but you lose the subtleties, the details that give soul to the narrative. Curiously, even with all this limitation, we keep trying. We keep talking, writing, explaining, as if words could capture the totality of what we feel. Mary found this almost poetic. The human persistence in trying to convey something impossible to translate is both frustrating and beautiful. And that is where personal experience comes in. Mary began to pay attention to the small sensations of daily life. The smell of coffee in the morning, the wind on her face, the shiver when listening to music. She discovered that by focusing on these experiences without trying to explain them, she felt them more fully, as if the mind ceased to be a barrier and became a channel. But of course, it is not simple. We live in a world that constantly demands translation. We need to communicate feelings, explain decisions, justify choices. And often, we are forced to simplify what is complex, as if compressing a work of art into a footnote. Mary began to realize that this was a universal challenge shared by everyone. And in this process, a new awareness arises. Perhaps the value of experience is not in being understood by others, but in being understood by ourselves. Feeling something deeply, even if no one else understands, is a kind of freedom. Mary began to sense that by accepting the imperfection of translation, she gained something that words could never give: authenticity. This understanding, however, does not bring easy answers. It only opens space for a new kind of questioning. If the mind is flawed in translation, how can we truly know what we feel? Mary felt that there was something more, something that went beyond logic and language, something that connects us directly to the essence of each experience. Mary began to dive into the text of philosophers, seeking answers to that enigma of the indescribable feeling. Kant said that there are things we can only know through experience, not through reason. Schopenhauer reminded that the world is representation and that each perception is unique. It was like opening a map where every road led to more questions than answers. She realized that philosophy always pointed to the same conclusion. Subjective experience is intransferable. You can read about happiness, sadness, or fear, but you only truly feel it by living it. It is like studying the movements of a complex game without ever pressing the buttons. Theory helps, but it does not replace feeling. Mary reflected on how this connects with everyday life. We try to explain our feelings to friends, but we often encounter confused looks or automatic responses. I know how it is. But do they really know? Philosophy reminds us that each consciousness is its own universe, impossible to be fully penetrated by another. She remembered an episode when she tried to explain the feeling of nostalgia to her brother. He listened attentively, but his expression showed that nothing she said translated what she felt. It was at that moment that Mary understood. There is a silent beauty in this impossibility of absolute sharing. And this does not mean isolation. On the contrary, it creates depth. It is like in a cooperative game where each player experiences the level uniquely, but all connect through the common objective. Mary realized that understanding this changes the way we relate to others. Less frustration, more silent empathy. Philosophers, from Plato to Wittgenstein, always pointed to this limitation of language. Each word is a symbol, not the thing itself. Mary understood that trying to translate emotions is like trying to capture the wind in a bottle. We can perceive the movement, feel the breeze, but never contain the wind. And this reflection brought another insight. Perhaps art exists precisely to fill this gap. Paintings, music, films, poetry, all of it attempts to touch what words cannot reach. Mary realized that subjective experience finds other channels of expression in the senses, beyond the rational mind. But then, a subtle provocation arises. If philosophers and artists show us that experience is unique and intransferable, how can we truly connect with another? Mary felt that there was something even deeper to discover, something that would take us beyond philosophy straight to the heart of human experience. Mary began to venture into the world of neuroscience, trying to understand if science could explain what she felt. She discovered qualia, those subjective experiences that no one can measure or touch, only feel. It is like looking at a screen full of colors and realizing that each person sees a different hue, even though everyone calls it red. She was fascinated to realize that while scientists can map neurons, brainwaves, and synaptic connections, they still cannot capture the essence of feeling an emotion or the blue she so desired. It is as if the mind were an advanced computer that translates everything into codes, but never reveals what happens in someone's internal experience. Mary thought of the science fiction films she loved, like Her, where Theodore connects emotionally with an artificial intelligence. The idea seemed close to impossible, sharing feelings without the experience actually being lived. It was living proof that science and emotion walk side by side, but do not always meet completely. She also realized that the study of qualia challenges the very notion of objective reality. What is real after all? What we feel or what we can prove with instruments? Mary realized that science, as precise as it may be, has limits when it comes to the depth of human feeling. Curiously, scientists do not get discouraged. They continue exploring, recording patterns, and trying to correlate the brain with subjective experiences. Mary understood that the effort is noble, but there is a territory that may never be fully mapped. A territory that can only be discovered by living. And this discovery brought Mary a sense of freedom. If there's no way to measure everything, if there is no complete manual of human experiences, then each person is the guardian of their own perception. This gives power and responsibility. We are authors and witnesses of our most intimate experiences. She began to reflect on how this applies to daily life. When we feel love, fear, or sadness, we do not need external validation to know that it exists. It is what makes us human, and also what silently connects each of us through that which can never be fully explained. But Mary also realized that this freedom comes with a challenge. If no one can feel exactly what we feel, how can we create true connection? There was more to explore, something that surpassed science, philosophy, and even language. A territory where only direct experience could guide us. Mary began to realize that all the accumulated knowledge about blue or emotions did not replace the act of feeling. Reading about happiness did not make her smile. Studying pain did not make her cry. Only direct experience filled that empty space. It is like knowing all the recipes in the world without ever tasting a dish. The mind understands, but the body does not feel. She began seeking moments where she could allow herself to feel without filters, without trying to translate into words. Walking barefoot on the grass, observing the sky at sunset, listening to music without making mental lists. Each gesture seemed simple, but revealed a complexity that no theoretical knowledge could capture. Mary realized that experiencing does not mean merely passing through the moment, but paying attention to it, absorbing every detail, every nuance. It is like a video game player who does not just run through the levels, but observes every scene, every shadow, every sound. This presence transforms experience into something that can truly touch the soul. And here comes a subtle lesson. The more we try to rationalize feelings, the more we distance ourselves from their essence. Mary understood that the mind wants to explain everything, organize everything, but the heart and senses work differently. It is in this contrast that moments of true perception arise, intense and unique. She reflected on how this applies to human relationships. It is not enough to understand another's sadness or joy. It is necessary to create space for the other to live and feel, without trying to translate or correct their emotions. Mary began to realize that empathy is not explanation, but presence. And the more she lived, the more she understood that each experience carries multiple layers. The same music could evoke nostalgia, happiness, or melancholy, depending on the moment. The same color could inspire peace or restlessness. All of this exists simultaneously, without needing words. This realization brought lightness. There was no need to control everything or try to explain every sensation. There was beauty in complexity, in the indescribable, in what escapes translation. Mary began to feel more connected with herself and the world, simply allowing life to flow through experiences. But of course, there remained an intriguing question. If experience is so unique and personal, how can we truly share it with someone? Mary felt that this was the next step of the journey, discovering ways to connect without relying on language, without reducing what we feel to words. Mary began to notice that each person sees the world uniquely, as if carrying invisible lenses shaped by past experiences. The blue she saw could be completely different for someone else, just as a piece of music can bring distinct memories to each person. It is a reminder that reality is largely subjective. She remembered a friend who described the same film opposite to her experience. The suspense that was exciting for Mary seemed boring to him. This realization made her reflect on how our perceptions are always filtered by our own stories, beliefs, and emotions. It is like playing the same game, but each choosing a different path through the map. Mary realized that trying to teach someone to feel something was useless. What we can do is share the space, create opportunities for the other to experience in their own way. It is like offering an open door to the unknown, knowing that each person will pass through it uniquely, absorbing nuances we might not even notice. This diversity of perception also brings richness to human relationships. It is fascinating to realize that no one experiences the world exactly as you do. Each person is their own universe, full of different colors, smells, and sounds. Mary began to value this, seeing subjectivity not as an obstacle, but as a silent treasure. And sometimes, this difference generates frustration. We think the other should feel as we feel, but the reality is that each experience is individual. Mary realized that accepting this difference is a crucial step to living in harmony with the world and the people around us. She also reflected on how art attempts to bring these experiences closer. A painting, a piece of music, or a poem can evoke similar emotions, but never identical. And yet, there is an invisible bridge that connects us through shared feeling, even if each person experiences it differently. Mary began to notice that the deeper she delved into this perception, the more freedom she felt. Freedom to feel without comparing. Freedom to exist without relying on approval or external validation. Each experience becomes valuable by itself without needing translation or proof. But this perception brings another silent question. If each experience is so unique, how can we truly approach someone? Mary realized that the answer might lie beyond logic and language, something that would require sensitivity, intuition, and presence. And this led her to a new territory to explore. Mary began to realize that, even with all the subjectivity of experiences, it is still possible to connect with others. The key was not to perfectly translate what she felt, but to share the space, be present, and allow each person's experience to be respected. It is like dancing together without needing to follow the same steps, feeling the same rhythm in different ways. She remembered simple moments, like talking with friends or watching someone moved. Even without fully understanding what they felt, the simple act of listening and being present created an invisible bridge. Mary realized that genuine empathy arises from attention and openness, not complete understanding. And this silent connection brings a rare kind of intimacy. It is the comfort of knowing that someone shares the moment with you, even if your experiences do not coincide. Mary began to value this invisible delicacy, realizing that the world is full of subtle encounters that do not need to be explained, only lived. Curiously, by accepting the impossibility of translating everything, Mary felt that life became lighter. She did not need to convince anyone of her reality, nor get frustrated for not being understood. This freedom brought a sense of authenticity and presence that no theoretical knowledge could offer. She also noticed that art, music, and literature function as tools to create this bridge. Even if each person perceives it differently, there is a shared territory of emotions that connects us in a profound and almost magical way. It is as if subjective experience finds resonance in the heart of another. Mary realized that this search for connection is not about controlling or translating feelings, but about respecting the individuality of each experience. It is allowing each person to live what they feel without interference, creating bonds based on silent understanding and shared space. And, in the end, Mary began to understand that the meaning of life is not in being able to explain everything, but in being present, feeling deeply, and sharing moments with authenticity. It is in this delicate dance between experience and connection that we find meaning. Mary shows us something fundamental. Feeling deeply is not something to explain. It is something to live. Every experience of yours, joy, pain, love, longing, has nuances only you can perceive. And this connects us all in a silent way. We do not need to fully understand the other to connect. Just be present. The lesson is clear. Accept that some things have no translation. Value your own experiences and allow yourself to feel without seeking approval or external understanding. It is in this space between what we feel and what we try to explain that life gains depth and authenticity. So, tell me in the comments, which experience or feeling did you find hardest to translate? And which character or theme do you want me to explore in the next video? If you want to continue discovering the mysteries of the mind, experience, and human emotions, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. This way, you will not miss any content that will transform the way you perceive the world and yourself. These two videos in front of you are not here by chance. And what if everything you believe about yourself is just a reflection of someone else's gaze? Click now on one of the videos beside you and start breaking this mirror. You will have to risk the click. So, which one will you choose?